Hello, hello, hello. And you know that this is the favorite time of the week for me. And that is when I get to interview somebody who I really look up to, somebody who you've got to know about, and somebody who really is a pioneer in the world of the ageless traveler. It's Carolyn Ray. She is the CEO of JourneyWoman. We've spoken about JourneyWoman many times. You know, I was honored to get one of her awards for solo travel wisdom. And here I want to introduce you to her and to JourneyWomen and all the trips that you could take that are on your bucket list. So this is really a cross off. Let's just cross it off because we're going to go with JourneyWomen. So thank you so much, Caroline, for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for being our Solo Travel Wisdom Award winner for 2024. It's an
Yeah,
exciting moment.
it was an exciting moment. It really was an honor. And I'll tell you that I won, I think, because there is really no such thing as solo travel. What I said was the minute you go on a trip, particularly with women, and it's called a solo trip, you know right away you're going to have friends.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Solo travel is an oxymoron. You will probably meet more people on a solo trip than you would if you went with a friend or a husband or a spouse or a significant other. We really do. So let's talk about Journey Woman. Let's talk a little bit about its really stellar history and interesting history. Let us know about it.
So, JourneyWoman was founded in Toronto, Canada by Evelyn Hannon in 1994, and it was originally a printed newsletter that she started after realizing that I believe she was in her 50s at the time, and she realized that there was nobody writing about solo female travel. And she had just gone through a divorce and went to Paris on her own. And she's written about this many times, but she was lonely, she was sad, she was terrified. So she started writing out her own stories and learnings and experiences, and that turned into a newsletter. And then in 1997, it went online. She had one of the first travel websites in the whole world, so which still exists today. And she cultivated this community of women around the world, thousands and thousands of women who would subscribe to our newsletters, which we still have today, and visit the website for tips and what to wear and safety and all kinds of things. So she was really kind of known as the first solo travel writer for women.
Yes, and it really is wonderful because you've continued that entire legacy so that if people are involved with Journey Women, they learn a lot. You still have your blog, you still have your hints and tips, you still have your curated products, but you also collaborate with a lot of companies and you even consult
Yeah.
with those companies so that the trips are really right for the solo traveler. So give us some of the latest innovations that you're doing. I particularly like the one in Africa. Tell us about that.
Well, one of the things that's different about our website is we don't have advertising on it. So, which is different than other websites. Whenever you go to a media website, you often have ads flying around and that kind of thing. And
It's
I came
annoying.
out of yeah, and I came out of the marketing and branding industry. I only started working in travel in 2019 when I took over Journey Woman. And I really wanted to have a nice, clean, beautiful website. So I made a decision then not to have advertising. But what that meant was we had to find another way to fund the website.
Sure.
And Evelyn had actually started a women's travel directory, and she featured 20 or 30 or maybe even more companies that specialized in women's tours. And many of those companies have been around 15, 20, 25 years, maybe longer. We said, well, how could we start to grow that? And out of the blue in 2021, I had a woman approach me from New Zealand who had started a website where she had curated all of these trips for women. And we ended up integrating it with our site. We vet everyone who comes on the site. We interview them. We review their websites. We speak to the owners. We look at their trips. And then they're categorized by women only, size of group, cost, no single supplement, all this stuff. So there's a lot of ways to search the site and find the destination that you want. And, we have a lot of very interesting trips coming up this year. And again, we don't operate the trips. We just
Right.
host the platform. But I've, I'm very interested myself in doing volunteer trips. And I did one last year in Costa Rica with turtles. And I know you love turtles
Yes.
too.
I was actually in Vanuatu right before they had their terrible
Yes.
earthquake, swimming with the turtles. I don't swim with anybody, but with turtles,
Yeah.
I will swim.
I did this trip and I'd wanted to do this for a long time. And so we had actually a JourneyWoman trip in November in Norway with Hurtigruten. And on that trip, there was a wonderful woman who came from South Africa who has conservation trips. So we decided to do a trip together. So that trip's happening in September of this year, and it will be working with rhinoceros and elephants and pangolins and all kinds of endangered species. And it's a small group trip. We're looking for about 8 to 10 women to come with us and do this work. And then I'm looking at another one in Ecuador. So
Yeah.
so I'm trying to be selective about these, but I think the more purposeful travel is really something that is, I don't know, important to those of us who travel a lot. You want to have opportunities to do other things too and give back a little bit.
Yeah, one of the first things we did was we created something called the Ageless Ambassador Program. And that's actually a program that trains people who want to be volunteers, how to speak up and how to get the mission across of whatever it is that they are involved in, particularly if they volunteer and they leave. They go in, they spend a few days, and they come back home. And we partnered with
Mhm.
AmeriCorps Senior. So once they go through the program, AmeriCorps Senior suggests local programs where they live. So a
Mhm.
conservation would be a great example. Let's say people go on your tour and they come back and they say, I loved being able to volunteer with regard to conservation, but what can I do at home? Well, if they're
Yeah.
part of our program, we can get them right into an at-home based conservation effort. So this
Oh,
is
that sounds great.
it's great. It's very important.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to put your tour up on our website so everybody will know about that particular one because we're concentrating for the whole summer through September on Africa tours. So watch out
Mm,
for that. Now, when we come
yeah.
back, I want to talk about something you don't expect to talk about, and that's men. I hold that in mind. We will be
I
right back. Don't go anywhere. Are you culturally curious, but you can't always travel? Or do you have a loved one that you are a caregiver for and you'd love to see them travel, but they really cannot do so? Well, we have affiliated with Wowzitude. You might have read about it in Forbes magazine. It's the online real time travel guide. You can actually visit places on your computer, on your telephone, and of course on your TV. Simply go to agelesstraveler.com, take a look at the travel products, and you will see a list under Wowzitude of some of the places you could have gone this week. For example, England, Rome, and all of the places that you feel you just might have missed because, gee whiz, they're so far away. How about traveling to Ecuador? And what about here in the USA? Well, Wowzitude is renowned for bringing real time travel experiences to your home. And we've affiliated with them because, while we know you never want to stop traveling, sometimes you have to travel from your armchair. It's Wowzitude, the agelesstraveler.com travel products. And now we are back. I read a statistic that 63% of women who travel solo are actually married. I started to do a little survey of my groups and I asked them about it, and their husbands don't want to travel. So we started something called Travel Bros, where we have men who do travel, because I believe in the positive deviant, the one who is doing everything, and see what's the difference between them. It's been pretty fascinating. So let me ask you this. You're very intimate with the people who go to your website on the trips. Also, are they married? And do you have any insight as to why this seems to happen more and more as people age?
Well, actually, we just completed a global survey of over 1,600 women, and of those, 24% were married. Our survey that we just did included, inputs from 4 or 5 different types of travel companies, so including Tour Radar and others that would have a broader base. So I think what we're seeing with women's travel and not just solo travel, what women's travel in general is that as women live longer lives and healthier lives, the men are not living as long as the women, and therefore you're seeing more women travel solo. I don't know that it's necessarily related to marital status or that men aren't interested in travel. What I have heard anecdotally is that many men have traveled in their work lives and in their careers,
Yes.
and they're less interested in travel now because when they were traveling for their careers, it wasn't as leisure travelers. It was work. It was different. Yeah.
It may be there in some psychological aspect of it because I do know so many women in my life. All of my friends were corporate people, female friends, and they had to travel all their life.
Hmm.
And now that they're retired, they say, "Great, I'm retired. Now I can travel."
Yeah.
Whereas the men
Yeah.
do exactly what you say, which is, "I'm tired. How many times am I going to get on that plane or that train?" So I don't know. There's something going on there. We'll see if we can find.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, we were as women, we had other responsibilities in addition. I mean, I traveled for work. That's how I learned to travel was
Right.
for work, and had never traveled internationally really until, well, that's not totally true, but really, I never really traveled like I traveled when I started working for a global company. And you get a lot of confidence by traveling that way and starting to go stay longer for trips and things like that. But yeah, so I'm not sure what's going on with the men.
So now let's go back to the women again. Um, I have had so many people say, and I've said it, that they're very frightened of widowhood. They're not frightened of aging, not frightened of getting older. It's all, in fact, better than it was. They'll all tell you this. They are frightened of widowhood. And I was on a cruise, Theatrical Adventures at Sea. It's one of my favorite cruise lines, and we actually offer it because it's part of the Gilbert and Sullivan Society. So it's full of music, all kinds.
Mm,
And a woman came over to me, and I'll never forget it because I was on the Danube and I was holding onto the rail looking at the beautiful sightseeing as we were slowly going down the Danube. And she just wanted to make friends. It was way before my podcast. And she said, "I'm so glad I did this. I was so afraid to go my
mm,
first trip by myself." And that's when I really began to think about barriers to travel as you get older, one of them being widowhood. Now,
yes.
what you're doing is you're breaking down that barrier. And when people get together, and if it is their first solo trip, what are some of the things that they have to grapple with that the tour operators that you vet and curate seem to be helping them with? What are some of the things that are drawbacks that
Yeah, I think,
are overcoming?
and I think it is a difference with men and women, perhaps, is that women are looking for connection with like-minded women, with women like them that have gone through similar journeys in life and similar milestones. And we have a whole section on our website dedicated to widows because so many of our readers are widowed. In
Yes.
fact, several of our writers as well. So it's a topic that we write about a lot. And I've even had women come up to me and say that they went on a trip because of an article that they read on our site that gave them the courage to get out there and try again. I think what I would say is, uh, I interviewed some widows last year for an article that I wrote, and you have to do it in your own time, in your own way, and don't feel pressured because sometimes people think that travel will heal all things, and it's just not true. I mean, we have to take time for ourselves, and we have to go through a grieving process. And so I think when it comes to widows, they are a very special group of women that are looking for women like them who understand, what you've been through.
Well, I have two responses. I was brought up by a widow. My mother was a little older than my father, but my father died when I was 11, and she was by then 44 years old. And it was a very sudden death. So she never remarried. And there was nothing like JourneyWomen. One of the
Hmm.
reasons I'm just so devoted to what you're doing is her, because she would go on trips. In fact, later in life, I sent her on a few trips, but it wasn't exactly comfortable. Aside from the single supplement and all the other expenses you have, there was a loneliness to it that I think
Yeah.
no longer there. There was a stigma to it that I think is no
Mm,
longer there or has to be there. That doesn't mean it doesn't worry me, but I will say that my travel started because of his death when I
mm,
was very depressed, and they did send me on a trip. And I will tell you that getting out of the situation and being out in the world and seeing
yeah,
things I never saw before does make a difference. You're right.
yeah, yeah.
You're right.
And
You're
I think it is a little generational too, Adrienne, is if you are the one, if your husband is the one that always did all of the planning and paying
yes.
for everything, there's a certain amount of empowerment in doing that yourself now that you've never perhaps experienced, which is what I heard from these women that I spoke to. Their husbands had always done all the research and the booking and one woman said to me, just being able to have the money in my hands was for me and give out tips and all of that. That for her was an empowering situation. So I think it does depend, and I'm in my 50s. I mean, I've always planned all my own travel and paid for it myself. I didn't have a husband paying for my travel. It's a little bit different maybe than women in their 70s and 80s.
Well, let me go a little further. Before we started to record, I explained that I'm sort of on the scientific side of aging and travel. You mentioned women as a practical matter, telling you handling the money, making their own choices. Well, there's a scientific basis for that. The National Institute of Health, which is UK, and our own NIA, National Institute on Aging, did studies on this. And they have something that they call self-imposed helplessness. It's a
Mm,
fascinating study. Self-imposed helplessness comes with age. People tell you you can't do it, so you don't do it. Or you've had a husband who's taking care of everything, and so you didn't take over while he was alive and kicking. That's another style of self-imposed helplessness. Now, these studies were about travel specifically,
mm.
saying that people who travel frequently do not fall into the trap of self-imposed helplessness. Why? For exactly what you described. You got to get up in the morning at a certain time. You got to get your bags packed. Even a luxury trip that says get your bags
Yeah,
out by 9 o'clock. You got to get the bags out by 9 o'clock. Even on a cruise, you have to tip. You have to make decisions on and on, and nobody's doing it for you.
that's right.
And when you do that on a trip, you take it home with you. So that now when you're back in your own environment, you are less likely to fall into that helplessness trap. It is difficult for people to think of travel as anything but a leisure, nice to have, not need to have experience.
Mm.
But in fact, it really is part of your healthcare.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I think travel is so essential for so many more reasons than if you think of travel only how many places you've gone and how many places you're checking off. That is not what it's about. It's really about learning who you are and all of these things you're talking about, confidence, empowerment, independence, being able to make your own decisions. A survey that we just did showed that 98% of the women who took the survey are the decision makers in their households. I mean, that is incredible. They are the ones deciding what to do. And I just love that. I think that's beautiful.
Well, we can't wait for the survey. Now, is that going to be on your website or how can we see it?
Well, it's actually quite a large effort. We've been doing it for about 4 months, and it included interviews with about 25 CEOs of travel companies and nonprofits and groups that are involved in diversity and equity in travel. Because one of the things I've realized is that and this, that the market ignores older women. The world
You
sometimes
bet.
ignores
Mhm.
older women. So what we wanted to do was understand what the commitment was from the executive of these travel companies to the older woman in the market and also to the solo traveler, but first looking at women. And then we did an online survey of over 1,600 people, and we're just we're just going through all of this now. But the other thing we did that was really important is we've done a market analysis using our data and other sources to understand what the value of the market is to the travel industry. And that has not been done. The travel industry has been focused on younger people,
Yes.
serving younger people. And I think I read a stat that only 5% of travel marketing is dedicated to older women. So we thought the only way to change this truly, truly is to have some data and to involve the travel industry in this research so that we can make changes. So that's what we're putting together right now. And I'm hoping we'll have it all ready by the end of February.
Well, that's wonderful. And we're
Yeah.
going to go a little further about this and advocacy when we return. So we're going to take a little bit of a break now. Don't you guys go anywhere. I will be in Africa for 3 months, folks, and I am planning full regalia from Rwanda to Kenya to the Big Five to birding to cultural experiences in some of the major cities, and of course, very important, volunteering. 1 week to, say, 2 week trips, all of which are going to be specifically created for the Ageless Traveler through different companies that are on the ground, mostly in Africa, 1 or 2 in the UK. I'll be telling you all about it. You'll be seeing it on Featured Travel. You can pick and choose your own, those that you would like to go on. And as always, we have discounts. Just go to Featured Travel at our website, agelesstraveler.com, and you'll get all the information. And we are back, and we're speaking with Carolyn Ray, who can bring you to trips all over the world, not just Africa, but including Africa. We even talked about a wonderful volunteer trip you're going to have in September. But you did mention the fact that of the tourist industry. I'm just going to give you a little bit of my soapboxing, and then I want to
Yep.
talk about your favorite trips. First of all, you're right. We did a study, small study, not extensive as yours. Mine was research driven, that people over the age of 60 are slated to take 1.6 trillion trips in the next 25 years. My belief is that the industry really needs to know that. And they really need to know that we're a vibrant market, and they need to know who we are. And because of longevity, and we're changing so much, they have to know that people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s are not the people they used to be. So we are trying very hard to educate the folks with regard to that, and particularly the staff that interfaces one-on-one with the tourist.
No kidding.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Why am I not in there? Because group 77, 75 plus does not get counted. Just what you said. Because
Yeah, well, our data shows actually that the most affluent group, the group that spends the most on travel, is age 65 to 74.
sure.
And that travel spending actually increases as you age. So that is I am sure no travel company has that perspective at all. And I agree. I think this is the kind of information we need to get out in front of the travel companies and help, and also help make travel more affordable. This whole discussion of the single supplement that I've heard for the last 5 years, I would like to be in a place where I never have to have this discussion again, and see if we can bring that to a close. And so that's another thing we're working on now with the travel companies behind us is how do we facilitate discussions around that? And we're also doing focus groups with our readers to get their input on a framework that we want to introduce to the travel industry. So that is all going to happen in March and April.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, the things that we're
Yeah.
looking at is age tech, because we believe that the interface, even for choosing and booking online, is not age
I
friendly.
couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Now let's go to the fun part. So this is the question you don't want me to ask. Where's your favorite place that you ever went? Because that's the hardest question in the world.
Oh, it is a hard question. I don't, as I said, I don't count countries, but I generally am going to, around 15 countries a year, and typically spending several weeks in each, if not months. So my lifestyle now is almost full-time travel. My favorite country still is Spain. I just find it's safe for women. It's got lots of history, UNESCO World Heritage Sites, beautiful weather, beautiful food. It's It's less expensive than Canada where I live. And I just find the people so warm and friendly. So that's the place I always love going back to. And someday would like to live there full time. So
Well, one of the things I'm looking into is places in Europe to live. But when
yeah.
people ask me that question, they get very disappointed because I've been to 121 countries, and some of them many times. I've been traveling since I'm 11. I never stopped traveling from that time that my mom had the foresight to take me out of my depression and bring me somewhere else, which
Mm,
happened to have been to Paris and Amsterdam and Israel and Yemen, an amazing conglomeration of countries. But I love London.
yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
believe in
I love
past
London
lives.
too. Yeah.
I don't believe in past lives, but if there is such a thing, I think maybe I was English, an
Yeah.
English woman. Well, I'm such an Anglo, back and back and
Yeah.
back. And then I make little deals with myself. I'm going here, I'll go to like Dubai, and I'll say, is there a place where I could just get off in London just for a couple of days from Dubai? And it's usually so difficult, so impossible, but I try. So that is the case. Sometimes you go where your heart wants to go,
Yeah.
where your bucket
Yeah.
list tells you to go. But now tell me, you're going to Antarctica? Did you say that you were, or you
So
have?
I am going to, yeah, I'm going to Antarctica next week with a company called Aurora Expeditions, and we are helping them design their first women-only expedition in 2027. And so that's everything. That's the whole experience, the speakers, the lectures, the food, the whole shebang, from the moment to to the end. So we're just in the process of putting that together. And so I'll be going to kind of audit the experience and provide some feedback. And, this is something that we're starting to do with more companies now and help them adapt to women and, in terms of safety and that kind of thing, but also to older women and solo women. So this is why we did some of this research, was to get some facts and start shifting perceptions and, opening up a discussion. So,
One of the things that I think is the golden thread here is that particularly women, but everyone wants to make good friends through travel. And
yes.
the best of intentions. Everybody gives their website, if they have a website, certainly their email, where they are on social media. We're going to see each other. We'll do this, we'll do that. And then it doesn't happen. It falls away, which is why I think that our Facebook salon is important at Ageless Traveler, but I think there's more to it. I really believe that the tourism industry could offer what I call relationship tech. It's apps and a variety of apps and ways of staying together and staying connected. And I think the tourism industry could be an amazing resource
Mm,
to combat loneliness. There was another award that we were nominated for, and that was for the silver market in Europe. They had a health,
hmm
aging and combating loneliness, nothing to do with travel, but we were nominated for that because of this advocacy. Could you imagine all the women that you serve still staying in touch with each other, whether they're traveling or they're not traveling, but make it real easy for them? That's what I want
Yeah.
to see. I think that would be you become a citizen of the world with regard to that.
Yeah. Well, there's, as you say, there's great technology being developed all the time that's a little easier to use. I think we had some on our website 5 years ago, and it just wasn't very friendly, and now it's getting better. So I think there'll be more tools coming.
There will be, and particularly for the tourism industry. I think that's wonderful. All right, now before we have to close up, I want to go back to JourneyWoman again. And that is, you're always planning. You're always making huge strides.
You're always innovating, you're creating new ways to do things. And because I don't know I mean, I've never run a website until 5 years ago. We just make our own rules. We do what we think is right. And above all, try to serve the traveler. And which is why, doing surveys and having the more I'm connected to the traveler and be a traveler myself, then the more I can be of service to that woman. And that's what I've tried to do with JourneyWoman, is just stay really, really close to the women that have been part of this community for the last 30 years.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned, and we're going to take a little break, I want to get back to this because you can't sweep it under the rug, and that is money. If I get criticized because there are so many things that I could spend my time on, and many people say travel is a luxury, and to some
Mm,
extent that's not incorrect. I don't fight that. There is an issue of the haves and have-nots of travel. And when we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about that because you have mentioned that. Your great strides have to do with getting rid of the single supplement, which could be cost prohibitive for some people.
hmm
There are other things we can do, and we will talk about that in a moment.
Great.
Now, you guys, don't you go anywhere because we will be right back, but you're going to want to hear about this really important message. So don't you guys go anywhere. There are many barriers to travel, but money should not be one of them. I have put together a free ebook for you, but please act now. It's called Luxury Travel for Less. You can access it completely free of charge at luxurytravelforless.info. It's the kind of book that really is helpful. 32 pages, 75 websites, and all the hints and tips I use as I travel for 3 months throughout the year on a budget that's very similar to yours. You know, we're all on fixed income here one way or another after retirement, and yet we love to travel, and we love to travel in luxury. No more bad beds for me. LuxuryTravelForLess.info. And now we are back. And we're going to just continue this thing. So I'm always very conscious of who I'm talking to on my show because I know that my mother did not have a lot of money after widowhood. And in her case, she was only in her 40s. She had a child to take care of. So it was very limited where she could go. It's always on my mind to
Yep.
democratize all of this. So tell us how you're getting along with the single supplement and anything else, and I'll put in my 2 cents on where I think we can save some money here. But how's the single supplement going? You think it'll ever go out the window?
I think the goal here with the single supplement is to have more consistency and more transparency around how it works. And even some of the very simple things, when you go to a website, and you want to book a trip, or it could be anything, it could be dinner. It's the whole world does this. It starts with two as the automatic, it starts with two people. So I think even having options where you would go on a website and you would book a trip for one instead of having to dial it back all the time. So that's something that I think we can do to help reduce the cost of travel. You know, in my case, Adrienne, when I turned 50, I downsized. I got rid of everything I owned to travel. So, part of it is you can't just look at one thing in isolation. You have to look at your whole lifestyle. And I don't buy things. I have changed my lifestyle completely. I can guarantee you everything in my very small apartment. So I have a very small apartment right now. And I buy my clothes at Value Village. I recycle everything. It's everything you do and looking at your whole lifestyle, I think. So if I could encourage women to do anything, it's to look at your possessions and think about what you can reduce. What I don't have cable, you kind of look at everything you spend money on and how do you start to dial that down. And I think, when I got rid of my house, I was a single mom and raised my daughter. And when I got rid of my house, people said, well, how can you do that? Where is your daughter going to come home to? That's a like a guilty,
Yeah.
my daughter lives in London now. She has her own place. She does not need, my house to come home to, and I'm not going to keep it for her. And it's some kind of museum like state for her to visit, once a year. So we have to kind of get over that guilt and that idea of how things should be. But making that decision for me to get rid of my family's antiques, my grandmother's china, pianos, all
Yeah.
of that was transformational because I realized then that possessions don't really mean what we think we do and what we attach to them. And when you start to think differently about that, then you can look at the world, I think, with fresh eyes. So I have very, very little that I treasure anymore. I have some things, but most of my things in this, even this apartment I'm in now, I do not need them.
No,
I don't. So
I also downsized. And I just got today, I got a message from a UK company asking if they could represent me as a speaker on ships. And they want to know what I would talk about. And I said, I would talk about making the world your second home or
yes,
even your first home. And I don't know what they're going to think about it because I just sent that in, but I know how to do that. And believe
yeah.
me, I was the person with the 4 acres and the big house. And I was a lawyer originally for 35 years. You kept up with the Joneses. And
This is it.
yeah, no, I downscaled. But my background is in money. People want to know what travel books I've written. The answer is none. I've written financial books. So I see three things. One, what you say. If you really want to travel, you plan for it and you create your lifestyle and you deflect your discretionary money into travel instead of into things. So that's one.
Yes.
The other part I see is what you're doing. And that is no single supplement. I did a few tours with very low end tour operators, very low end, very inexpensive. And I saw ways that would cost them no money that would make it safe and comfortable for older people to go. Very small things. And so that's the other. You can adjust to lower end travel very easily.
Yep.
The third thing is my old industry, is the financial industry. They never once ask you about your travel plans after retirement and sit down with you and say, here's an annuity that will fund your travel for the rest of your life.
Yes, I agree.
So I see a real cooperation here between travel industry and retirement planners. Not all the financial industry, but the retirement planning side of that
Well,
industry.
even insurance, that would be another one, right? Is what you're charged when you hit age 70 to travel is ridiculous. If
Yes.
you're in good health, it is ridiculous. So it could be and an example, my partner is in his 70s. We looked at insurance for him. My insurance with one company was $200. His was 4,000. It's extreme, and that needs to be looked at too.
Well, we did that because that's my old business, let's say. We've looked at the least expensive travel insurance for travel disruption, but also for health if there's issues when you travel and whether you really need it. So as I say, I'm proud to tell you I've been sick in almost every country in the world, and I know how to handle that. So these are the kinds of things that I believe are barriers to travel. People worry
I
about
do too.
sick, this
Yeah,
sort
I
of
do too.
what will happen, and particularly in a place like Antarctica, what they worry, will there be the healthcare for them, and so on.
Well, and you have to have medical evacuation, and
Yeah,
that's the cost I'm talking about. It's very
sure.
expensive if you're over 70.
But we have worked with medical destination evacuation companies to really talk to them for reducing those
Great.
kinds of costs. So it can happen. I will simply tell you that in 2 days I'm going to Mexico. Why? To get my teeth done. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of very good healthcare out there, actually, if you know where to look. So now we'll finish with this. I know you're very much looking forward to next week, which is you're going to Antarctica. Is that the first time that you've been?
Yes.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about the itinerary. Do you know the itinerary that Aurora
I
has?
do. Yeah, I do, and it's similar to the one that we're planning for in 2027. The big difference is it's a fly the Drake. So on the way down, I'll be in the boat, and on the way back, we fly. The one in 2027 that we're planning will be fly both ways, which I think is a nice option too, and it also gives you more time, obviously with the wildlife and the animals and that kind of thing. So So it's a 12, I believe it's a 12-day trip. And, you start in Argentina and you finish in Chile. So,
Beautiful.
so yeah, I've been invited many times to Antarctica, and I have always kind of resisted, but I realized that, it's more than just traveling there. It's an opportunity to really make it more accessible to others, which is why I want to go on this one.
See, that it comes to money too. I will be in South Africa in September. Now, South Africa is a place where people go very frequently to Antarctica from South Africa. It seems to be the right time of the year, all kinds of things going on. And there was a company that takes you down there, and it was
Hmm.
$100,000.
Wow.
I mean, yes, of course, it was celebrity level type of thing, but really. And then you'll see others
But really,
yeah, right. Then you'll see others that are in the 15, $20,000 range. That could be for many people, but really also. I could kick myself because I went down that same trip all the way down to the Falklands, but then did not go continue on to South to Antarctica. And so it's one place I haven't been and really do long to go. So I'm going to take very carefully watch what you come up with for this.
yeah, yeah. Well, these trips have no single supplement, so it's a good start.
Yeah.
And and we have, at JourneyWoman, we're able to negotiate additional discounts. So we have an additional 15% off the what's listed publicly,
Right.
which is incredible savings. So yeah, that's part of what we're trying to do with our women's travel directory, is use it as a way to negotiate exclusive deals and discounts for women to help them get out there and make it more affordable.
We thank you so much. Of course, we're going to have your website on our show notes. We're going to have as many travel trips that you would like to offer to our
Oh,
listeners.
thank you.
And anything else that comes up with the survey that you would like published and posted to the consumer, please let us know about it.
Thank
But
you.
you're
Appreciate that.
really in the forefront of probably the hottest, I call it the hottest trend around, and that is the solo travel, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And that's wonderful. So thank you very, very much. This has been a great interview.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for everybody else, you know what I'm going to say? Never stop traveling.